All right. I'd like the regular meeting of the Destin City Council, September 20th, 2021 is now in order. First up, we have Pastor David Butler, Faith Assembly Christian Church. Would you like to come up, sir, and lead us in our invocation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would you bow your heads? Heavenly Father, we thank you for once again another beautiful and glorious day. I'm reminded, Lord, of the Beatitudes found in your holy word, and I'm reminded of one that has been given to me since the printing of that, and that says, "Blessed are the flexible." And so many times in my life I have found out that being flexible is certainly a wonderful characteristic. I pray, Lord, tonight that you would give our minds and our hearts that flexibility to cooperate, to work together, to remain in unity. And if we're not to be in unity, Lord, or if we haven't been, but to be in unity, I just thank you for all the great things you're doing in our city. I thank you for our community servants that are here tonight. I ask for your guidance, for wisdom, for clarity, for the divine health, for their prosperity. And now, Lord, I also speak out of Numbers chapter 6, and may the Lord bless you, may the Lord keep you, may his face shine upon you and be gracious to you, and may he give you his peace in Christ our Lord's name. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Up first, agenda approval. Is there any changes, additions, or anything that they like?
I have one, Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Brady.
It's just, I asked the city attorney, bring us an agreement. It's more of a housekeeping thing. As you know, I don't like walking things on the agenda, but this is more of a housekeeping item, more than anything. It's for Mike Buckingham, as our go-to guy on the Royal Melbourne Heritage Park.
We can place that under your name, under item 7, if that's okay with the council members. I'll take a motion.
Okay.
We need,
Motion to approve the agenda with changes.
Second. I got a motion, I have a second. Let me grab my little thing. Any discussion? Seeing none? Ayes have it, Mr. Braden. It'll be under your name.
Thank
Item
you, sir.
7.
Thank you.
All righty then. Outside of that, let's see, first up, 1A, approval of minutes of the September 9th special city council meeting.
Recommend approval?
I have a motion, I have a second. Is there any discussion on these minutes? Seeing none? Ayes have it, so moved. All right, we don't have any proclamations, recognitions tonight, correct? Yep, all right. So we're going to go right on to item 3, which is public comments on agenda items that are not public hearings. And we do have a couple public hearings tonight. This is for items and comments on agenda items or things not on the agenda that you would like to share at the podium. You have 3 minutes. When you come up, you just need to state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes to speak on your point. We do not have very many folks here tonight, so I will open the public comment period at this point, if anybody would like to come to the podium. There is no mad rush to the podium by all 3 people in the room, so I will close item 3 at this point. And that leads us right to you, Lance. Take it away, sir.
Thanks, sir. Item 4A is an update on the TDD expansion, and we have Mr. Burns online to give that update.
Okay, can you hear me, Lance?
We can hear you loud and clear.
And
Okay,
and we can see you.
Okay, that's good. Whether or not you think it's good or not, I'm visible to you then. So anyway, the last week and a half since the big multi-municipal county meeting that everyone attended at the convention center, I think Mr. Bauman kind of summed up what's happened since then, but to kind of run it down, every additional municipality who had not passed it that day has gone ahead and passed and agreed to each of the interlocal agreements. So now every single municipality has agreed to the interlocal agreements. And then last Wednesday at the TDC meeting, the TDC board approved of the ordinance, which had been amended or revised after the meeting at the convention center the week before, to include language that protects Destin's ability to have an elected representative for the basically in perpetuity on the TDC board. And so that was the one contingency I know in Councilmember Schmidt's motions, that be included in there. It still requires the county commission to actually pass the ordinance. The TDC referring it to the BOCC is not fully, the BOCC actually passing it, but the meeting's tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. I intend on attending that meeting just to make sure it goes through, because the will of the council is clear by moving to agree to both interlocal agreements on that one contingency. It's important that the contingency stays in there, is met, and that your will is clear that you want these interlocal agreements to go through. And then it'll be up to the voters on October 4th or October 5th, I believe it is. And I, for one, I've already received my ballot. I actually haven't opened it up yet. It came in the mail today, so I know they're going out. But I think that's the update on the actual process under the 164 process that we've started. The 164 process will be terminated effectively once the agreements go into effect. There's language in the agreements that kind of take care of that. I'll get with the county attorney to make sure there's no hiccups on that. That was their understanding too as well after the meeting 2 weeks ago that everyone attended. And so I think that's all I have to say on the current status of the 164 process and the interlocal agreements and the ordinance that will be voted on by the county commission tomorrow. If you have any questions on those issues, I'll take them at this time. Obviously, I know Mr. Bauman had an additional issue he discussed with me earlier today on an attorney general's opinion. I figure maybe we can address that second kind of as a sub issue if y'all don't have any other questions on the actual 164 process itself. So I guess I'll take questions now if y'all have any.
Yes, Jeff, just to reiterate, you said the meeting's tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Is that in Shalimar?
Correct.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Go ahead.
I got one thing to add, council, is the county attorney called me late this afternoon. They had some discussion with DOR related to some ministerial elements on section 20-71, which related to the collection of the tax being switched from DOR to the clerk. The DOR just had some issues with the language of that and the sharing of information with the clerk's department. So they did make some very minor changes to the ordinance in that regard, even since TDC met. Does not substantively affect anything, certainly does not substantively affect the city of Destin's seat or anything like that. The county attorney just wanted to make sure that I apprised you of that for full transparency tonight.
And I would actually say, Kyle, the language strengthens the ordinance more than anything, because it makes it clear that the county is vesting the clerk of court with the power, the county's actual power to do the local collections. And so those are the ministerial changes that they made. It was more or less is making it clear. And the fact that the county agreed with it wholeheartedly makes me believe that their full intent is to do the local collections. So it wasn't some sort of change at the last second like a gotcha or anything.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Burns. Appreciate it. Thanks for chiming in. And I'll see you tomorrow afternoon.
I think I'm staying on. I think there's a discussion on the AGO opinion.
Any comments concerning that, Kyle? Would you like to weigh in?
It was at the request of Councilmember Bagby, so if he'd like to introduce it, or whoever wants to take it, it's fine.
Sure. So it's interesting, you got your ballot. I didn't get my ballot for a county-wide taxing district today, and I don't anticipate I'm going to get my ballot for the county-wide taxing district. Look, we have the county's attorneys and our attorney have presented two different pictures. We, in my mind, need to get this resolved. This has nothing to do with the TDT or the TDC or the agreement that we agreed to over in wherever the heck we were. Shalimar. That's all done. The percentages are all set. What this says, what I'm asking, and I'll read the question so everybody in this city knows. What we're asking the Attorney General of the state is 3 questions. Does Okaloosa County, as the taxing authority, possess the legal authority to create a single taxing district which levies the tourist development tax at different rates for different areas of the taxing district? I don't believe they do. I believe a couple of months ago that Mr. Burns told us that he didn't believe that they did. And if you have a taxing district, you have a tax rate. We're not having a millage for Crystal Beach tonight and a millage for not Kellair, or for Kellair. We're having a City of Destin millage. That's how it's set. That's how tax rates are set. So we have a disagreement. It has nothing to do, even if the Attorney General comes back and says, you know, Mr. Burns was correct 2 months ago in everything he told you, that doesn't prevent the county from saying, okay, we're going to have the taxing district in the north and it's going to be at 4%. We're going to have the taxing district in the south, or the original taxing district is going to be 5%. Maybe at some point in time when they're the same rate, we can look at modifying this or whatever. But it doesn't do anything to what the county is planning on doing. The second question, does Okaloosa County, as the taxing authority, possess the legal authority to incorporate the totality of an existing sub-county special taxing district into a new county-wide taxing district by way of a referendum election which excludes the citizens residing in the existing sub-county special taxing district? You know, to me, we have sworn to protect the citizens of Destin and their voting franchise. In my mind, this action that the county's taking disenfranchises them. If 20 years from now, the city of Destin says, you know what, we don't want to be in this bed tax game right now, today, 15% of the people in the sub-county taxing district would have to sign a petition to get a referendum on that. Once this is passed, and it's a one county, then it's 15% of everybody in the county would have to sign that referendum. So you're diluting the power of the vote of the citizens of Destin, in my mind. But I'm not an attorney, but I've talked to plenty of them. And the third question, if the city's citizens, and this is the point I just made, seek relief pursuant to section 125.0104, para 6D, Florida statutes, would they be required to garner 15% of the electors in the original sub-county special taxing district that they approved to join, or would they be required to garner 15% of the electors in the new countywide taxing district that they were denied a vote in order to remove themselves from the taxing district? So, to me, this is about the power of the citizens of Destin, and it's about the taxing of the businesses in Destin. And we still have a seat. I'm not asking, I mean, those agreements, this has nothing to do with those agreements. The question is, can we have 2 different tax rates in a district? And can we disenfranchise the voters of Destin? And I don't think we can. So I will make the motion that we authorize the city manager and city attorney to forward this to the Attorney General.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second for discussion. My name's the only one. My only concern, Jim, is the signal that it sends after we just had a 164 process with all the municipalities agreeing on the language of, and how the execution of this ordinance. My second concern is usually Attorney General's opinions, well, I think they are not legally binding, correct?
No, they're not legally binding.
So, in essence, sometimes they're not worth the paper that they're written on. If it's to get an idea whether we'd want to take some other recourse down the road, maybe an Attorney General opinion would be worthwhile, but I just don't see the value in it at this time and juncture of where we're at in this process. That's what the 164 process was. So we wanted to make sure we got everything in that ordinance that was good for the city and good for the citizens of Destin. So I think if some of the questions you're asking, if there's other people in the state that think the Florida statute's being misapplied, I would think that they would step up at some juncture after the ordinance is passed. There'll be a legal challenge, either from the state or maybe from a private citizen, I don't know. But in the interest of trying to build on the cooperative atmosphere we have between all these municipalities and our county commission at this time, and all the things that's important to us with the county commissioners over time, I'd just be reluctant to support that, but I don't have a vote. So, that's up to the other council members. But I just kind of wanted to bring that. AG opinions really aren't, if it was to create some animosity because we're asking for it, and the fact that it's not going to benefit us, really, the AG opinion wouldn't, no matter what he says, I have some reservations. Correct. I stand corrected. Mr. Destin.
Thank you, Mayor, and the questions Jim poses are all pertinent. Unfortunately, as I read through that agreement that we voted on at the convention center, at the very end of it, I noticed a little paragraph that said we agreed not to challenge the legality of this document. And I, at the moment, thought maybe I shouldn't vote for this, but in the spirit of all the cities and the county getting together, I did. And so I voted to a document that said we wouldn't do that. However, if someone who has a dog in this fight, a motel owner in the new area, citizens in the existing area, wants to ask those questions, they are certainly germane to the issue, and I think probably the interpretations we got on those questions, which tend to make us believe that those are problems, it would probably be interesting questions to ask. And the other point is that, and it's easy to rationalize these positions you really think you maybe shouldn't ought to take, but it's the county that's doing that and not us. Our agreement doesn't violate any state laws that I know of. So reluctantly, I would not be able to support this because I voted and said we wouldn't do that.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with everything the mayor had said. And I think that Mr. Bagby has a good points, questions that need to be answered, but I just think it's too late in the game. Wish they would have been brought up earlier. And I too, I just don't want to rock the boat with all the other municipalities. And if the AG come back and said that, yeah, that, it's illegal or whatever, what then? So it's, and like Mr. Destin said, the document we agreed on, voted on, says we wouldn't challenge it. So for those reasons, I won't be able to support the motion. Thank you.
Dr. Ramswell, and then Ms. Aber.
Thank you, Mayor. I look at this as it's an opinion. We're asking for an opinion from the Attorney General. It's not, we're saying we're suing anybody. It's nothing that's, like y'all said, legally binding. It's merely seeking another outside, higher level opinion. And I don't see that as necessarily a challenge either. I see it as we're just looking for another opinion on what's right, what's potentially not right, and helping us make some decisions in terms of if they're saying maybe it's not right, then what do we do? But honestly, I don't see any harm in seeking an opinion. That's the purpose of getting an Attorney General opinion, is if you're unsure about something, asking them, having that level of experts respond back.
Ms. Aber.
Well, fortunately, Mr. Destin and Mr. Braden spoke exactly how I feel. We did vote on this as municipalities across the board, and that we wouldn't even ask for any kind of outside intervention, and I feel like it would be stirring the pot to say we need an opinion, so I won't be able to support this.
All right, is there any further discussion? Go ahead. That's what, Mr. Bagby.
Thanks. Couple of points, and I think Ms. Ramswell, Dr. Ramswell made the point clear, but I'll reiterate it. The asking for an Attorney General opinion, what the Mayor and what Mr. Destin said are in opposition. It's an opinion. It's not a legal challenge. It has no legal weight. It's an opinion by the senior attorney in the state. We have 3 attorneys that think one way. We have at least 1, maybe 2 attorneys that think the other way. I think we owe it to the people of Destin to figure out what that is. In that last paragraph, it said basically we wouldn't sue them. It didn't say we wouldn't ask for an attorney general opinion. We wouldn't legally we're not legally challenging a single thing. And I just think, again, the agreement that we made in Shalimar is this does not affect the agreement that we made in Shalimar. We'll still get our 48%. There'll still be 5% tax down here. There'll still be a 4% tax in I think it is fundamentally, constitutionally wrong. But I'm not a lawyer. But I know there's one in Tallahassee who can say, nope, you're crazy. What you're asking is not right. Or, yeah, you are right. We wouldn't do anything different. It does not affect. I get let's be good team players. But if we're doing something wrong, I don't want to be on that team. But I don't know if we're doing something wrong. We should just ask the person that can tell us, in her opinion, whether we are or not. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bagby. Seeing no further discussion, we have a motion, we have a second. Let's take it to a vote. Mr. King. Opposition wins. The vote is no.
Mr. Mayor, item 4B is the monthly capital project status update from Ms. Crystal Strickland.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Before you, you have our monthly report on our capital project statuses. A few things to note of update. We've received a few more, 5 of our 8 vehicles that we ordered, so there are still only 3 outstanding waiting for the chip issue to be addressed. Other than that, we don't really have a lot to report, just good progress. Year-to-date encumbrances are standing at $3.4 million. It's in contracts that we've signed to accomplish certain projects, and we have spent $9.9 million to date on capital projects. I'm here if there are any questions.
Any questions on the capital project status? Seeing none, let's go on to the next one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 4C is the monthly operations financial report. And again, Ms. Strickland is here to answer any questions.
Okay, so this evening I have brought for you the monthly financial report for the period ending July 31st of 2021. First, you have a summary of the general fund. Next, you have a summary of the town center CRA. And third, you have a summary of the harbor CRA. There are some other funds that I haven't been bringing forth because they're pretty small, but you're going to start seeing those in your future monthly packets so that everything will tie out more neatly. The new addition to this month is the last page, and this is a balance sheet. So this is all of our assets and liabilities as accounted for under governmental modified accrual basis. So this means everything that is owed within a year or less. And this does not include our long-term liabilities. Government accounting by nature is more focused on the near term and cash basis. So with that, I'm available to answer any questions.
Is there any questions for Crystal? You did a really good job in your briefing document. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 4D is the council had previously authorized staff to engage 3TP to assist with the new mobility planning and fee schedule update. And we're pleased to have Mr. Alan Steinbeck here of 3TP to give us a presentation on the status of that project.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm pleased to be here. I'm very pleased to working on behalf of the city. We have a team of companies that are engaged in this work, and I wanted to give you the first of several briefings on this. There are some major decision-making points that the council will be looking at in the near term. and we would need to be ready for those. So I wanted to give you some information about where we stand, what we're doing, where this is going, and to provide you a status report. So the purpose of this plan is to establish long-term needs. It's been a while since the city took a full accounting of all of its long-term needs in terms of capital projects for transportation. A long time. And also, this is an opportunity to look at parks and recreation as well, because we're working on that topic. We are looking at moving people safely and effectively in the mobility plan. We do understand that there's a need to move people efficiently sometimes, and when we get into trouble with congestion in this area, but the safety and effectiveness are important to us as well. This vision for the long-term future, and we're looking out into around the year 2050, so think about the very long-term future, that Destin is a well-designed community where the transportation system supports and enhances the living, working, and visitation experience. We do understand that the quality of life of Destin's residents, business owners, property owners, and the people who work here is of key importance. It's easy as an outsider to think about the visitation experience and how to facilitate that, but we know that that's extremely important to you all here in the community, so we are going to be focusing on how to make the people who live here and their lives better through all of this work. The goals reflect that notion in terms of preparing this information for different types of users and for all modes of transportation. We are looking at vehicle capacity issues, walking, transit, bicycling, and some of the longer-term needs in terms of parking and other types of things that are being discussed. So we will have a long-range infrastructure plan around all of these different modes of transportation, including some things that may currently not exist here in Destin today. I think as important as that work is working on the policies of the city, we're going to have a new policy framework, as you all know, moving from the multimodal transportation district to a mobility plan structure, which is a different way of doing things. It's like a cousin, but it's a distant cousin, so it works differently. Yes.
The difference between the two, would that create part of our process? Would have to make changes to the LDC to address that difference in between what we have on the books today, multimodal?
We will have to do that, and in fact, I was going to explain that to you in my next slide, which in this slide, it shows existing and proposed, moving from the MMTD structure, which is part of the concurrency management regime, which went away a long time as a mandate from the state. So what you have is a vestige of the old concurrency management system on MMTD, and it's been at work. I know that it's hotly debated whether it worked or it didn't work, or what benefits were derived from it. We will be assessing that and coming back to you with that about what actually happened in terms of those improvements in that strategy. But I think all of us on the team feel like it's the right idea to move to the mobility plan structure because it is the new way of doing things. It's the new policy that's supported by the state. And what it does for you, if you look at implementation tools at the top, the MMTD structure really weighed heavily on the LDC. It relied on the LDC as one of the primary mechanisms for implementation, with the idea that development would be designed a certain way, that we'd be implementing multimodal facilities, and through that process, the city would have a more walkable community and some alleviation of traffic. And it really did rely on that policy framework, the pathways plan, and kind of in third place here on the slide is the impact fee, because it never took its full rightful place in funding those types of improvements. The impact fee has been set very low since the wake of the financial crisis of 2008 and 9, and the subsequent lowering of that fee that happened after that. The mobility fee allows us to get into a work program focused mindset with the idea that we have more funding available through the mobility fee itself. I anticipate that you all will choose to raise the mobility fee when we get through this process from where it is now, and so there'll be more funding for infrastructure and less need to rely on the LDC to implement the project, even though the LDC will have its role in doing the work of implementing the projects. The big takeaway I want you to remember is we're really doing two phases of work. Right now, we're working on the Land Development Code modernization project, which includes reorganizing the Land Development Code, updating the Land Development Code relative to your comprehensive plan, making it compliant, and dealing with some of the vestiges of the Land Development Code over the time. There's a lot of inconsistencies that make it difficult to implement, both from a staff perspective and from a developer perspective. So that work is going on now sort of as an independent thing. We've commenced work on the mobility plan and an impact fee study that covers your other fees of police, parks, and library. So you will have a mobility plan, a mobility fee study that will deal with the transportation fee, and a separate impact fee study that will deal with the other three elements. We are moving as fast as we can through the impact fee study. In fact, the main thrust of this week is to meet with departments and talk about the impact fee, the history of collections, the expenditures, and some of the planned projects that come from those topic areas. So we'll be doing that over the course of this week. The second phase of the project includes setting the fees, where the other big decision comes from the council is deciding what the fees are. We are nowhere close to doing that because we really have to do the plan first. We have to calculate what that fee structure would need to be, and then we'll come back with a recommendation about that. So we're getting there as fast as we can. We know that that is the thing that you all are eager to do, is to revisit that. But there's a lot of planning in front of that has to happen. And that planning work is important because it provides the legal foundation for the fee structure and provides protection for the city in being able to implement and back that fee up over time. So the plan is not just a planner's type plan, it's actually a legal construct that keeps you from having people sue you about your fee and getting into conflicts with people over that. So we're giving that its due diligence as we work on phase one, and we'll get to phase two as fast as we can. That will also include some additional work on the comprehensive plan and the land development code to implement the mobility plan and the new impact fee structure. And we are working on the concept of putting together some design standards and guidelines that will implement the land development code. Right now, the land development code is a bunch of words, and it doesn't provide very clear guidance about how to do site development, how to do public infrastructure in the right of way, and those standards and guidelines will help provide a clearer path towards negotiating those things and knowing what the city wants to have. Another way to look at this phasing is through the specific schedule of the mobility plan, and we are now currently in the trends and conditions reporting stage. The first phase of work that's going to occur after this is drafting projects, and one of the key decisions that council will need to make is do we have the right list of projects in all of these categories? So we will be coming to you, vetting that list of projects, showing you what's on it, where they came from, whether it's from past plans or from current engagement that's going on. So you will have a chance to review and vet that along with the other stakeholders of the project. So that will be a key decision point that will happen in this first part of the project. We will do a full evaluation of the benefits of these, so we will look at all of the projects in total. We'll look at the future development pattern of Destin. We'll analyze how that transportation network supports that development pattern and ensure that we are planning for something that's going to work over the long term. So you'll also be able to see the results of that analysis to make sure that we are making a good decision about the level of investment of infrastructure. We have a public vetting plan for the winter, which is some public engagement where we will go out to stakeholder groups and talk about these draft recommendations and get feedback from the community on that. So that's going to be a major part of the project. And then moving into spring and summer, we'll have a finished mobility plan that you all will be asked to consider and officially adopt, along with working on the mobility structure and the fee, which will be summer and into the fall of 2022. So we're looking at about a year from now of having a fee structure available to adopt based on all of this work. This is being done in the context of new state legislation. So the state of Florida passed new statutes around impact fees, which do limit communities over how much they can raise those impact fees. It limited it to a 50% raise unless there are extraordinary circumstances demonstrated. So we plan to try to demonstrate those extraordinary circumstances so as to give you all the option of setting the fee that you want to set. and not being constrained by that state law, in case any of you are watching that unfold. So our current status of the project is, again, working on that trends and conditions report, and that will include information about trends and conditions in the transportation system, about development, about land use, the economy, and about how things are going. So it'll be a good overview of what's happening in Destin. We will be assessing level of quality of service, so doing some engineering and planning around how the transportation network is functioning currently and how we intend to have it function in the future. And we're also doing an inventory of current and planned projects. So there's a lot of projects on the books that have not been completed that the city put in a plan at some point. So we're now coming up with a base set of projects for that. We have completed traffic counts all around the city and are starting to summarize those findings. One of the things that we found was on US 98, peak traffic volumes have been going up. So relative to 2016 and 17, you see many of the intersections along US 98 have had double-digit percentage increases in traffic. That is a change from what we were seeing prior to 2016 and 17, where 98 was kind of leveling off and not growing. But now we're back to the point where traffic is growing again, part of which can be explained by the fact that the construction project has opened up, providing a lot more capacity. So we've seen people get back onto 98 because of that. But we've also seen utilization go up across the board there. We've done a quick impact fee comparison. When we come to you all about setting fees and do some further work on this, we will have a regional review, a full review of all of the municipalities in this area who have impact fees adopted, so you'll know where you stand within your region. But we wanted to start with this quick assessment of some other places around the state to see where things stand in terms of their fees and compare that to where the current Destin impact fee is now. We also have on this table the recommended fee for the Destin impact fees in the 2007 study that was done. And you can see the difference between that line and what was actually adopted is significantly lower than what you have now. You're not alone in this. There are a lot of communities that still have much lower fees that have been around for many years. But these fees were set lower in the wake of the great financial crisis to alleviate pressure on development and provide some economic development incentive. So I would say the findings of the other counties, we tried to find some counties that were sort of middle of the road in terms of their fee structure. And I would say these represent some of those. St. Cloud is an outlier in terms of it being a higher county or higher municipality in terms of some of its fees, in particular the transportation fee. So our next step for the project are to finish our trend and condition report, do synchro modeling, which is the traffic analysis. We're doing a safety assessment to understand where people are crashing and getting injured so we can try to address that. We're doing multimodal level of service assessment, a parking study, and looking at the mobility hub and the park and walk options, especially for the Harbor District. And doing some public and stakeholder feedback in the fall. We're going to go out and talk to people about the fact that we're doing this project, what the desired outcomes are, and just have people briefed up about where we're going with this. So that concludes my presentation, and I thank you for the time.
Don't go anywhere. We've got a couple folks who would like to ask questions. First up, Dr. Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for the presentation. You know, if I recall, we were sort of at the cutting edge with MMTD and sort of led the pack, but somewhere along the way we kind of lost our momentum and others kept sort of trailblazing ahead, so to speak. So I look at this as a really positive, necessary change for us, and I look forward to what we can accomplish with it. I did have a couple questions for you in terms of the slides. The first one, the US Highway 98 peak traffic volumes. I guess, first of all, were these all taken same month, same weekend-ish or weekday-ish as a comparison?
They were all taken in the month of July, the 2016-17 and this current year in particular, where month of July. The others just are the estimate of trends, so the actual counts on that chart are 16, 17, 21.
I'm looking at 2017 as quite an anomaly there for Crystal Beach and Regatta Bay Boulevard, where it's the only one to actually surpass 4,500. And it's higher than where we are now, whereas it looks like in almost every other case, this year we were higher. So very interesting. I was wondering what might have been happening at the time to make that one year, one intersection that high. The impact fee comparison, it's almost laughable. And I know we've heard from Lewis a couple times about how we really needed to work on getting more in line with some of the others. Out of curiosity, what were some of the lowest you found, for example, with transportation? Do you remember off the top of your head? I know you said this was sort of a middle
There
ground.
are very few who are under the 1,200,000 mark. There are very few in the hundreds of dollars on the transportation impact fee around the state. I could find some.
I was just curious because I know in terms of millage, we have been the last and we're typically close to the bottom. So I was just wondering if it was the same case with this. It seems to be.
You've piqued my curiosity. I'll try to find some, but I'm going to bet that it would be difficult to find a lot of communities that are under $1,000 for transportation, just knowing what I know about some of the ones that aren't on this list.
Very informative. Thank you so much.
Thanks, sir. I'm next. Has there or will there be an evaluation of what the fee structure has or has not accomplished in the past? Looking back in the past of where we were when we tried to institute the multimodal transportation districts, will that kind of be part of your research before your presentation back to us?
Yes, we are going to go look back at the collections and the expenditures, and we will assess what has been spent on what and
Right.
what it's actually done for us. The current level of service analysis that we're doing, it's going to demonstrate, and I know this because we've already done look at this, but in terms of bike and ped level of service, the improvements actually worked and brought the city back up to a level of service that you all had established a long time ago. The sticky point is on the vehicle level of service, where the MMTD did not track vehicle level of service, and nor did it try to mitigate vehicle level of service.
Right.
So the things that were done in the name of that were stuff the city spent money on, DOT spent money on, or DOT worked with the development community on in terms of capacity improvements.
And we'll get a little
So
flavor of that through this.
It's harder to put one's finger
Right.
on that
Right.
because of the lack of tracking that's been going on over the years.
And my second question is, in this process, is you coming back sharing some of your findings and/or recommendations, will we be able to see a comparison of how this has worked in similar small coastal communities like ours? Not as much as what they spent, but actual accomplishments and the effects on the community in a comparison to give us an idea of what we could possibly look forward to.
Yes, I would point to the place I know the most about, which is Pinellas County, which feels to me like the Panhandle all grown up in many ways. I know they have a very different culture than the Panhandle, but when you look at the buildings and what's happening, if you imagine yourself over time driving down Scenic 19, I think is what it's called, you can imagine where this is going if communities continue to make decisions in a similar way that they have been in the Panhandle, right? So the decision point will be, is that where you want to go, and is your land use plan portending that? And if it isn't, then what can we do about it? And yes, all of that is built into the assessment, because that is the guide for development, as you know, and we got to get that right in order to get the community that you want to have. And I don't think you want to be Madeira Beach, I'm guessing, because I keep hearing that. So we'll have to sort that out. But our team has land use planner people, and we have transportation people kind of in the mix. So we will be able to help you answer those questions for sure.
Thanks, Mayor. The mayor kind of touched on part of the question that I had was, the development of it and mirroring other smaller cities like ours. We've already put in place a lot of the building heights that will hold a lot of that over height. Will that help in this process, in your plan of, we've already got this in place, so we don't have a bunch of high-rises added into this growing until 2050?
I would say that's the number one way to avoid overdevelopment. The other is to, and this is the bad way to do it, is to cause too much parking to exist on specific sites, which gives developers all kinds of problems in how they resolve the building envelope and the parking demand, and the push and pull that exists there. So that can restrict development significantly, but I don't think that's the best way to go about doing this. So this is going to give us the opportunity to talk about where that development's getting more intense, to be able to have a community that can continue to grow and have infill development and reinvestment and things like that without overdeveloping and yet still meet the parking demands effectively. So that's the other part of the equation that I think is important in managing development intensity effectively.
Okay, thank you for answering that. That kind of leads into my second question, in that we created several parking spots throughout the city this summer, which helped get people a little more spread out throughout the down, Harbor Walk area. But we've also got a couple of lots that we didn't really develop into parking just to see if we would need them. And by about the end of the summer, we realized we really need those. So by next summer, we'll need them to be developed. In your plan of what you're looking at, are you looking at whether it would make sense to put in a 3-story garage down that hill behind McGuire's, where we've got 4 lots, instead of going further out in lots, just go more up and stop like at a 3-level garage? Is that something else that you look at in these types of comparisons for impact fee and where those monies are spent?
Yes, and firstly, those types of facilities do qualify to be in the fee calculation and to be paid for with impact fees. And we will be looking at that. The term mobility hub is being used, which would be a parking deck that does something in addition to just parking people, like being a hub for on-demand transit service or something else that happens there. Employee remote parking or visitor remote parking that aren't necessarily parking and walking, but they're parking and going to another destination. There's all those opportunities built into that. And we will be we'll be doing a parking study component of the mobility plan that will look at that and other aspects of parking demand, both localized but also in your policy framework as well.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question is about, when you look at the impact fee comparison and you look at the jurisdictions of Manatee County, Lake County, their resident head count is way more than 15 or 16,000 people, which is what is the residential head count that are part of the city of Destin, because we have 2 that are not part of the city. They have not been incorporated, so therefore we don't get that extra non-residential. Those counts don't come into play. So you build this based on just the tax-paying residents' head count? Is that how this fee comparison is written up, as just each city that is by those that are part of the residential portion of the city?
The Parks and Rec fee is something that's calculated for new residents permitted. Yeah, so it has nothing to do with charging any existing residents a fee. But the thing that counts about existing residents is that if you provide a certain level of service for your existing residents, you cannot charge an impact fee for a new resident that provides a higher level of service than what you already provide to people. So we are sort of locked into, in the impact fee world, into not charging the future residents more than what the current people enjoy. And that's the current residents' role to play in all of this. But the transportation impact fee would be assessed on all different types of land uses, not just new people, but yeah.
Well, thank you for this update. This has been a great eye-opener, and I appreciate you bringing this to us, and I look forward to future updates. So thank you what you've done so far, and thank you for being here
Thanks.
tonight.
Me too.
Don't go away, Mr. Destin. I got two more, maybe more.
Okay.
Define residential for me, it's not just single-family residences, it would be condominiums, it would be townhouses, it would be everything, correct?
It would be everything, yes.
Okay, and I noticed that it does not include any non-residential uses. Is that on purpose, is the law? I mean, how do we address shopping centers and restaurants and all the other things that are non-residential use?
And you're referring to the comparison slide that was in here? Yes. So we just reported on the single-family residential. These fees include fees for multifamily.
We'll get to the others
Yeah.
eventually.
So everyone enjoys the use of the roads, so all land uses go into the road impact fee, and there'll be a fee schedule that includes every type of land use, residential and non-residential in it. The rationale for parks is a little different. People, businesses don't use the parks in the impact fee world, so only residential uses are charged for that. But that could include visitation-oriented uses like hotels as well. And we have some latitude on that one. But everyone participates in terms of having a fee associated with them, and it's associated with their relative impact.
Okay.
And there's the opportunity to charge different levels of fees and complete a fee study that is nuanced in terms of the council's desire to emphasize or de-emphasize certain things in the community. I don't want to call that a game, but that's something our team will be able to do with you, is to get some preferences about how those different fees fit into the
Okay,
mix.
so short-term uses like a hotel or other they are considered residences, yes or no?
They are not considered residential units, but you can calculate a visitor as a person that produces an impact on a system, just like a person living permanently produces it.
So it'd be a different formula, basically, is what you're saying?
They are generally a different formula, but that's one of those areas where we have some latitude to figure that out.
Okay, and of course, the key to this is the fees that we finally adopt. Is in the 2007-8 study, we could charge up to $6,000. In fact, we only charged $1,300 in combination of everything. So we were about 20% less. We were way down. We were way down. Yes, and the key to multimodal's failure, and the key to this failure, will be whether we actually implement the fees, because if we don't, the rest of it's a waste of time. And so the problem that we're going to get into is, and I was here when we did the first ones, when you say, well, we're going to put a $6,000 or $10,000 impact fee on a single-family residence, they will be coming out with pitchforks and the rails to run us out of town. And I understand why, because that is a substantial increase to a single-family home or a unit of any kind. So that's going to be the real battle. We can come up with some lovely plans up front. If we fail to put the fees in again, we're in trouble. And we're kind of spinning our wheels.
All depends on how thick your skin is, Mr. Destin.
Yep, and as far as the parking garages, they'll go where the council decides they should go. We've already got some on that end of town. As I recall, the last study we did, there were supposed to be 3. We've never addressed the other 2 at all. So it's going to be a hard sell to continue to pack it in down there, even though they need it down there, and not address the rest of the area. So it's going to get complicated, but it's something we're going to have to do.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Mr. Destin answered my question, but I was on the impact fee comparison. The 2007 study recommended $3,700, and Destin adopted it in 2008 at $813. Am I reading that right? So they recommended $3,700, and for whatever reason, Destin adopted $800.
Was any of you guys there then?
So now all of a sudden
I was gonna say that wasn't on our watch, but maybe it was.
No, it wasn't on my watch. So if it was $800 was adopted, then I'm just curious what it was before that. Was it $750 or what was it? So instead of, so I guess really, we should have been increasing it all along. So instead of, like Ms. Just said, just all of a sudden increase it to $6,000 or whatever, we should have been walking it up little by little. And maybe it's time to start that process now and not just triple it or double it overnight.
Yeah, that's what this process is all about. So we're
Yeah.
gonna get to that road at some point, correct? That's part of the process.
We are, yes. I know you didn't pose me a question, but I would say many communities do have a phased-in schedule for impact fee escalation over 4 years. It could be even longer, but yes, and to Mr. Dewey's point, Mr. Destin's point, it can be jarring to raise it a lot. There's definitely a political conversation that goes on around that. Ultimately, you are going to adopt an impact fee that feels right. Right? But this process will allow us to make sure that you know what you're getting for that fee, right? So the plan itself and the improvements in it will know if we adopt this fee, then we can afford to pay for these things. So at least what we're being afforded here is an opportunity to set a fee that feels right in light of knowing what we're getting for it. It's hard to solve the politics of raising fees and taxes easily, and I know that's a sensitive topic. But this will be a transparent and objective process that we can stand behind and help you all make a good decision.
And I guess the next question would be for staff, is there any reason that we waited 12, 13 years to look at this again?
They're all new.
Well, I realize that.
Ain't none of them been here longer than us.
Right? I was just curious, does this just come around once every 15 years or?
It's because Lewis is here, and he's like, why has this not been updated? Right, Lewis?
All on Lewis, but I'm excited at the fact that they're coming back with it.
Well, I agree. Okay, thank you, Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you so much.
I got Dr. Ranswell, and then Mr. Bagby wants to defend himself. Go ahead, Dr. Ranswell.
So, I'm just sitting here thinking about numbers and raising it, and how obviously you don't want to go too high too fast and try to step it up. But I'm also thinking too, at some point it becomes supply and demand, and people talk about us being built out already. If we reach that point of really kind of running out of room and considering people are going to start tearing down and rebuilding and that sort of a thing, well, that's also going to end up ultimately, I would think, raising values, because we're going to be bringing in a different impact fee and a different type of structure because land will be so scarce. So just sort of pondering out loud.
Yeah, and to that effect, that's a very good point. But for right at the moment, we're at the very birthing stages of this, so we can't get hung up on the fees. There's so much more stuff that we have to look at before we even get to the fee portion of it. All the evaluations that
Which
you
is why I
come
didn't
back.
go throw up the regional numbers in front of you today, because it would be
Right.
so hard to unsee that. And also, though, one thing to your point, the fees are not market sensitive, so they don't adjust. If fees tied to a dwelling unit, it doesn't matter how valuable or big or whatever that is.
Right, but my point was thinking that if we have very little land left, they're going to be charging more for that land, so we would be okay with charging higher impact values because you're going to have a higher income level purchasing said property.
Yes, we already know from our research that your market is demonstrably supporting higher level investment, higher valued investment, quality investment. And yes, so you're right about that. The market can support a much higher fee.
Well, and real quick, sorry to cut you off if I did. It goes back to like you know, this is, who's going to come out with pitchforks is going to be builders. It's not going to be residents, you know. Nobody asks you how much did the roof on my new home cost? Nobody cares. They want to buy the house, you know. They're not going to even know they're paying an impact fee. They are. It's going to be the builder who wants to come and get you.
BIA that raised the biggest bill last year.
Yeah, and you were talking about $8,000 or $10,000. My damn roof's costing me 50 grand. That's just to replace it. That ain't to build it. Jim, go ahead. Jim will be the last speaker.
Yeah,
We'll move on.
And it's not just the builders, it's people with land who see that as buildable land, that now a developer won't come in, or they can't go in and develop their own property because they're going to have to pay more. And just to give you all context a little bit, remember 2008, impact fees are a little bit like a rheostat. You want to slow down development, you turn that rheostat up. You want to incent development, you can turn that rheostat down. In 2008, lots of properties going in foreclosure, okay? Lots of people, and yeah, the BIA and the developers and the people with the vacant land in town, the developable, buildable land in town showed up in force because they were already sitting on a product they could not get rid of. And if you said, oh, by the way, we're going to increase your costs, you know, that just hurts them even more. And it was an election year, and I wasn't up for re-election that year, but I don't think you were either. I think you were termed off or whatever. And so people were, you know, you see a lot of angry people, you know. I think we must have a great budget because we got 3 people here. This is usually one of the best attended meetings all year long when the budget get approved. You want to see a lot of people angry out there, and then we'll see, you know, how, it's real easy to be brave when there's 3 people in this audience. It's a lot tougher when this room is packed to the gills and you say, yeah, we're going to increase your impact fees 10 times from 300 to 3,200. Yeah.
First of all, there is an opportunity in this process where we're going to have a lot of public interaction, which is very good. And second of all, again, the fee structure is one of the least of the things that we got to consider first. You know, we got to give them a vision of what we want our streets and community to look like. We've done some of that in our visioning sessions over the last 2 or 3 years. I think we've got a conceptual idea, but we have to share that conceptual idea to the team so they can come back and say, here's the wish list, and this is what, if this is the direction you want your community to go, and this is what it's going to take to make it happen. And then we have to make those harder decisions during that time frame. So I just, at this time, I'd like to thank you for your presentation. I'm really excited about the direction that we're going to go with your help.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I ask staff a real quick question?
Go ahead, ma'am.
The transportation impact fee, that goes towards infrastructure like stormwater as well, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
And we see the problems we have with inferior stormwater systems and such to this day.
Especially the last 3 days. I saw pumps being stretched out on Main Street in front of our little subdivision today. Thank you, Alan. I appreciate it. All right. Great conversation. I'm looking forward to this. No, I am. That isn't sincere, because I think what we all think of as residents and community servants here, we want this place to be a better place, and this is the process. All right, sir.
Thanks, Chair. Item 4E, we have our Public Information Manager, Miss Catherine Card, here to roll out a brand-new Leave No Trace program that features turtle flashlights and educational components for our residents and visitors.
Thank you, Lance. Good evening, Council. So you can see the flyer. We've been pushing this out to our partners. As you know, we had embarked on a beach experience survey, and when we would push that on social media, one of the biggest things that I kept seeing over and over again is folks are very passionate about that there's not enough education on sea turtles, and people are not using the right type of flashlight. So in doing some research, we thought that this might be a really great initiative that the city could start reaching out to our partners, not only here in Destin, but also on Okaloosa Island and Fort Walton Beach, and they were all very gracious. So Henderson Beach is going to be utilizing them for their folks that, come and stay, to camp. The Destin History and Fishing Museum is going to be using it. It's actually, all of them are all now posting it on each one of their sites. The Destin Chamber has it, as well as the Emerald Coast Science Center and the Gulfarium. The Emerald Coast Science Center actually started using these flashlights with one of their programs with Little Adventures. So that's been pushed. We've had people that are coming into town here that were very interested in wanting to know where they could get the flashlights for them and their families. So when they're down there walking the beaches at night, the media has picked it up. Jared with Get the Coast did a great job and worked with me on that, and we have been pushing that PR. So I think it's been really well received.
Thank you, Mayor. Do you have one of the samples with you so you can let us show it on TV? Because I have one in my car if I need to go get it. It's pretty cool. It's about the size of your pinky. It's a really short, cute little flashlight. You press the end of it like a pen light, and it's red. And it's perfect.
Yeah, unfortunately, I meant to bring it, but I had to drive all the way around from the Mid-Bay Bridge, the traffic crash that we had today, so unfortunately I wasn't able to grab it, so I'm sorry that I was not prepared. But on that flyer, you can see it literally has that red hue, which is recommended at night. And it was nice because the company, we initially ordered 500, we have more on the way, but the company was very gracious in just adding that our Leave No Trace logo to that for free. So we will definitely push this very hard come next season. We'll be ordering more and in hopes that we can get some more partners on board to help facilitate this.
Nice work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I really need to be educated on this one a little bit. Don't know where it came from or where it started, but I know we got rid of the bright lights up in the condos because we didn't want the turtles going that way. And all the flashlights are down at the water's edge where the turtles need to go. So I don't know why we need a red flashlight down the water's edge, because it seemed like is there a big problem with the flashlights and the turtles going towards the flashlights at the water's edge, or? I'm allowed one stupid question every meeting, so I'm just.
I was thinking the same thing.
I'm just wondering. It seems like that, if anything, they're helping the turtles to go that way than anything. So I didn't know what was.
It stops them from getting disoriented. That the red light, basically, they're not disoriented. They can stay focused on crawling through the water and the sand if you have a red flashlight. Webb, you can tell them.
I don't see the red wavelength.
Right. Yeah. Well, I understand all that. I was just curious where this all stemmed from.
So the story behind this is pretty simple, honestly. It's the white light is to the turtles, according to what we've all been told, is the moon. So if you get a red light, they will follow the white light. If you're going east or west, or if you're right along, they will follow it. So that it could get them to not go back into the water as soon as they need to go back in the water. So the red light, they don't see it. They don't see colors.
So the turtles are going to the water's edge and they're just hooking a hard right or a hard left. Thanks.
Hey, I think this is a great idea. And I saw the Chambers logo on the little flyer, whatever. I would see if they can, my view is at $1 a piece, we ought to buy 40,000 and give one to each family with little kids that comes into either Mr. Destin's restaurant or some condo that Mr. Wampler is managing or whatever. But put, besides leave no trace, the city of Destin or Destin to build our brand, because I guarantee you that will be the talk of their little first grade class when they go back to Gladewater, Texas, is we went to Destin this summer and I got a little red flashlight.
And
a turtle light.
See this? That tag is part of the light.
Yeah, the tag can
With the
come off though.
Destin.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm put it on the light, like the leave no trace. Thank you.
All righty then. Next.
Thanks, sir. Item 4F, normally this would be on the consent agenda because it is a renewal of a continuing service contract for median maintenance. This has multiple areas throughout the town, including Highway 98 medians, Airport Road, Mountain Drive, and several others. The reason it's under my name tonight is because Zeke, who is the current contractor, has asked for a fairly substantial increase in the contract amount of approximately $40,000. So I wanted to bring this to council, not saying that the increase is unwarranted. The cost of keeping people on staff has dramatically increased. The workload out on Highway 98 is changing as the improvements wrap up to Highway 98. But it is a change, and so I wanted to bring it to council to get their opinion. We can approve it with the increase, or we could approve a month-to-month contract to extend their contract, which would give us time to go back out for RFB and solicit new bids for this service. My fear is, as someone who's dealt with these contracts for several years, is that if we do go back out to RFB, we're going to end up paying more than what we would pay with the increase on this account. So, but it is absolutely council's choice.
Mayor, I'd like to move that the city manager be authorized to execute a one-year contract extension for miscellaneous media maintenance services with Zick Outdoors LLC in the amount of $228,875.
Okay, I got a motion.
Second.
And I have a second for discussion. First up, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. How long have we worked with this company on this particular contract?
I believe this will be the third year if we renew.
We can't even talk tonight. We've been with this group for 15 months.
This group in particular, did they merge with another group?
It was this group in particular for the past 15 months. Our former continuing services provider and the city of Destin decided to part ways, and we went back out to RFB back in the spring of 2020, and the contract was awarded, I believe, the last meeting of June of 2020. So it's been 15 months.
And what's the service? I mean, what's the reason for $40,000 increase? I mean, what are they doing differently? As I know, like committees over the years, you know, if there's problems on Airport Road or something, it seems like a lot of times it's it's measures from committee members and departments that are reminding these companies to go do their job sometimes. Not saying it's all the time, just my experience on those committees, but besides cost of labor, it's increasing. What is there a reason why they're wanting to charge? Was it 20% or 10% more?
Okay, for a period in that initial 15 months, the city did not have control of the area east of Airport Road, as it was still under the FDOT's contractor's responsibility to maintain. That was during this period is when Zick bid on the job, knowing that area would be again released to the city at a later date. I believe they underestimated the amount of work that is required to keep that up to city standards. In speaking with Israel Williams, the managing partner of Zick, last week, he assured me that he would be bringing on additional personnel, and that's part of this offset to make sure that we get everything done based on the schedule that we've agreed to.
I appreciate that's exactly what I was wondering. And this is a group that you are agreeing with. You like this extension?
We have worked well with them over the last 15 months. We've gotten used to them, they've gotten used to us, and we've kind of agreed on what our expectations are. And I think you all might agree that this past season that the medians on 98 looked pretty good.
Awesome.
We do have some problem areas that we're going to be working with the state's contractor Ferroville and others on, especially in that business district around Brewster's and Waffle House and those areas. But that's in process.
Next up, Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. On the second page of this, the bottom chart, I'm guessing where it says 50%, 50%, 100%, 100%, is that 50% that's been paid out?
No, sir, I can answer that. That's for budgeting purposes. We mapped out what portions of these extensions are in the CRAs versus which portions are within the city of Destin separately. So the CRAs are paying for their median maintenance within their jurisdictions.
Okay.
Mr. Braden, I did forget to add one thing that's kind of important is the FDOT contracts maintenance of the highway with a local contractor, which the name escapes my mind. We subcontract or contract from them to maintain it. They actually pay us the equivalent of what we would get if it was a country road, basically, to oversimplify. But they did increase their amount that they were going to be giving us each year by about $20,000. So that does offset this increase by about half. So I should have mentioned that earlier.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just curious, I know we say that we pay above and beyond of what they give us because we want to keep it up to the city's standards. And I'm not real sure what the city standard is because you drive down through there now, look at those medians and they look horrible. Don't know what they're supposed to be doing, don't know when they're supposed to be putting some pine straw out or what, but I know you used to, 3 or 4 years ago, you'd see them guys that are mowing and picking up trash all the time, but I hardly ever see them out there anymore. So I'm just curious of what the city standard is. Is that just somebody, city staff going down through there looking, and they either like it or they don't like it, or, but if that's the case, then we need to up our standards, in my opinion. Thank you.
Mr. Destin.
Thank you, sir. This just those 2 sections that they've gone up on, is that correct? For $39,000 and some dollars, almost 40. I noticed that they had dialed back on some of the frequencies of the other things they're doing. So they're going to try to recoup their losses from 2 different directions, a little increase and a little less. I'm willing to let them try it for a year, and if it's not adequate, then we can always send it back out. But I know that we have had trouble maintaining medians in the past on a number of occasions, so I'll give them another year.
Thanks. So a couple questions. If this company didn't take over until May or June of last year, and then we're saying that they actually didn't even do the medians east of 98, they haven't even had a full year to complete their contract, and we're already noticing some issues. Is that correct?
Okay, so when they initially came on board, they were responsible for Airport Road, Mountain Drive, all those, and kind of collector streets off of 98, in addition to from the East Pass Bridge to Airport Road. The section from Airport Road to the county line was released back to us in phases starting in March of this year.
So
March or April.
Their contract did or did not include those medians originally?
It did, but they weren't paid for that because the city didn't have control over those areas at the
Right,
time.
so now he's asking for an up of almost $40,000 when he didn't even do a portion, he subcontracted a certain portion of that out, right?
Okay, just for clarification on what the city manager said, the DOT has a contract with a group called Ferrovial to maintain their right-of-ways. Ferrovial's mows and edges and all that to the DOT standard, which is about once a month. So that's not going to be acceptable, especially with all the Bahia grass and other grasses that we have along our shoulders and in the medians. So what we have asked them to do is we've identified a schedule. So within that schedule, there are mowing frequencies and edging frequencies and fertilization frequencies and trimming frequencies and all that. They were given the section from Airport Road to Matthew initially, and then I believe the second section was Matthew to Kelwyn, and then Kelwyn to the county line in phases. So they've been maintaining some of those areas for several months now, but it was a little bit more of a bite than that their current staffing level could handle. And that's why they've recommended or they've asked for this increase, so they can bring on some additional staff.
Okay, so essentially, they've underestimated the amount of work, as you said earlier. And so now they want to up their contract because of their own error in estimating the amount of work.
Okay, if you look at, I believe it's attachment number 3 on the thing, it says, at the time of bid, Zick Outdoors LLC was of the understanding that the square footage of the 2 zones affected by construction, and those are the ones I was mentioning before, would remain the approximate same mowing and edging area. When zones 2 and 4 were reopened for landscaping maintenance in the spring of '21, we were overwhelmed with a significant increase in the amount of time required to maintain these areas, or maintain these zones. So they underestimated not necessarily the area, but the amount of man-hours required to maintain them. Yes, so the answer to your question is yes.
So what is the frequency that they're looking at doing now? Because when we scale back frequency, as we saw when we agreed with the county to scale back beach cleaning frequency, that was nowhere near the city of Destin's quality level of expectation, whatever phrase I'm trying to say, our standard. So what is their frequency now that they want to drop to?
The frequency for the highway is, the medians is still every week. That's the frequency. What they're wanting to reduce the time on, if I understood everything correctly, is the right-of-ways on either side of the road, which normally the business owners are taking care of. So it would only be vacant lots or those where we are having trouble getting the business owners to take care of the property in front of their business.
But are the owners responsible for that, or is the city?
So that is an excellent question, and it's one that we're trying to deal with in code, because the answer is the property owner is responsible for the adjacent property. The problem is our code doesn't specify what the standard is that we need to hold them to. So if they go out there and weed eat once a month, is that up to standard? Well, we haven't got that in our code yet, and that's what we're working on doing.
Okay, so number one, obviously that's something that needs to be looked at immediately. Number two, or as quickly as you can get it to us, it should have been done already, but you know, I know I'm not the only one to say that I've been very disappointed in what the medians and the roadside looks like the past couple of years. And I know a lot of that has to do with there's been construction, but you can still mow and make it look nice even with construction going on. So even though I sound like I'm being really nitpicky, and I am, it's for a reason. I don't, a company upping their contract when they hadn't even fulfilled essentially what the original terms were, it's kind of concerning to me. But
And I understand, and I would have to go back and research the actual segments of Highway 98 that were actually under city control during all of the construction, because once DOT starts a construction project, we are relieved of duty out there, and the contractor becomes responsible for all maintenance out there until the project is complete. So it could have been the DOT contractor, and most likely was, not our local contractor.
And just, Jim, I got you next. We got a motion and a second to extend these folks' contract. The other option our city manager gave us was if this is defeated, that we can put out for bid. So, you know, you're going to have some options here. Mr. Back, go ahead.
Well, I have one more question, actually.
Go ahead, and then I got Mr. Bagby and then Ms. Abear. Go ahead.
What happens if we say it's okay to move forward with this contract and whatever frequency it is that they've outlined, and 2 months down the road, we recognize that that's not enough? How much more is he going to up it because we have a different level of expectation and a different standard? I guess that's sort of a rhetorical question, but anyway, okay.
What I was going to ask, is there something, could you put in the contract, the 90 days, if we feel like this increase, they haven't met what they have increased it for, Because I know we talked about this in the meeting. There's really only one other contractor that can come in and make that bid. But if we could put something in this contract with them that puts them on a 90-day standard, because we expect more and we're paying more. I realized that they had COVID sickness and they had lost, a lot of people that were out. And you got to pay more than $10 an hour now to get people to work. But this should cover all of those reasons for that increase. Can we add a 90-day stipulation in this contract?
I think we could, but I don't think we need to. We have a 30-day clause in there already that on 30 days' notice, we can cancel our contract. And for something egregious, we could cancel it in less time than that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to make a substitute motion. I move the city manager execute a quarterly extension for miscellaneous media and maintenance services with Zick Outdoors LLC. During those 3 months, he has the staff develop the standards, and he has the Public Works, Public Safety Committee review or evaluate our happiness with the performance of their current contract or that quarterly contract, and then bring this back to us to either put out for bid or to give him the rest of the year.
Second.
I have a supplement motion and a second, substitute motion and a second. Any discussion on the substitute motion?
Can I ask a question quickly here? Would maker of the motion consider 6 months to give them more time?
Sure.
A quarter?
Yeah, I'm just. Yes, sir, I would. 6 months, I'm fine with that. I wasn't even going to talk on this. I was just going to vote for the motion, but after listening to everybody, I was like, well, if we're not happy or we're not sure we're not happy and we don't have any standards, I don't want to buy into a whole nother year.
And then we get screwed up.
And then it gets.
Okay, so we
yeah.
have supplement,
6 months.
6 months.
6 months instead of a year.
Staff and the committee.
Is that okay with the second? It's okay with the second, and now I have further discussion on this, another motion.
I just was going to add one thing for Rodney and for anybody else, and maybe Jim has an opinion at the condos and stuff, but it does once a year of pine straw. Don't you typically see 2 or 3 times a year? Unless I'm misreading that. So that might be one of the issues that you're seeing, is that it only applies pine straw in the things one time a year, unless I'm incorrect.
You are correct. I think it's in the month of February that that's put down before spring
So I mean,
break starts.
that's not even the standards to the condos and other people, but I mean that alone might be something that just specifically needs to be changed in the renewal contract eventually. Just a thought.
It's our city standards. It needs to
I
be
guess
changed.
so.
I don't know what standards
Yeah.
are, but need to be changed, like you said, 2 or 3 times a year.
More money, but I'm just saying it's one time a year, and in the summertime it's already faded and gone.
Yeah, because that'll be an added material cost. Mr. King?
If we do and forgive me, when does this go into play? Goes into play in October, so puts us through April.
Yeah, these are 2 seasons, winter and
Yeah, I get that, but we do have a dormant season where everything kind of shuts down. So what is 6 months of dormant season going to prove to us as far as this contract goes?
Keep it clean. That's right. All right, guys, we have a substitute motion and a second, and let's take a vote. Let's get going. We can talk about this all night. Vote is unanimous, so moved. 6 months.
Thank you very much. And I did want to make sure the council understood when I said the standards aren't there for the adjacent property owner. That is a standard for all property owners. My house, the businesses, anywhere. So that needs to be put into our code. We don't have a high grass ordinance is the long and short of it, and we need one.
Didn't we talk about this a couple years ago when there was an issue with several properties that had extremely high grass, and I believe our land use attorney was going to look into doing something with the code at that time?
Louis, do you recall that?
I'm sorry, what was that question, Preble, that I looked into?
Looking at the standards for like high grass and property maintenance.
I don't recall that, but it's definitely something that Lewis and I can look into. You mean comparing what other areas in local governments consider high?
Well, it was our standard, and I think it stemmed from some issues around properties near the elementary school and some along Beach Street that had become extremely overgrown, and then there were boats and strange things in the front yard. And when we had those discussions, there was talk of doing something with the code to try to have some sort of standards across the board.
Okay. Well, we can put that in. I've seen it done elsewhere where they actually have specific heights and they're very specific as to what is enforceable. So we can definitely work on putting that in if that's the directive. And if we missed it and if I was supposed to be doing that before, I apologize. It's not ringing a bell, so it must have been quite a while ago. So
I know Mr. Marlar was still on council, so it was
Yeah.
at least that far back.
Okay, I remember a discussion about the height. I don't remember if we had actual directive, but if that is the directive, we will be able to get that to you fairly quickly.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Lance?
Thanks, sir. Item 4G is my announcements, and I only have one this evening. Our very own Catherine Card I wanted to recognize because she was asked to meet with Governor DeSantis today and did so to discuss the Florida statewide assessment test and the future of that test. So I'm very proud that she represented us very well today, so thank you.
Nice.
And that's all I have, sir.
All right, before we get into public hearings, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Mr. Bowman's portion, and waiting on Miss Abear to get back in her seat. We shall get started. We got our cool little turtle light.
I'm waiting on mine.
I like it. How does it work? Oh, yeah, I see it. I actually wear something similar like that on my head to go to my hunting stand. All right, everyone. Mr. Bowman, it's your turn.
Thanks, Mayor.
Item 5A.
First, we got item 5A. This is second reading of ordinance number 2117 CN. An ordinance of the City of Destin of Okaloosa County, Florida, adopting the final levying of ad valorem taxes for the City of Destin for fiscal year 2022 and providing for an effective date. And Mayor, before you get into discussion and a motion, the proposed millage is 1.6150. That is more than the rollback rate of 1.5566 mils by 3.75%. All right, thanks.
Thank you, sir. And this is a public hearing, so at this time, I will open up for public comment. And there is no public here, so I'm going to close the public comment portion of the meeting, and I shall entertain a motion.
I'll move that council adopt ordinance 2117 CN on second reading, adopting a proposed fiscal year 2022 millage rate of 1.6150 mils, which is more than the rollback rate of 1.5566 by 3.75%.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second, and I got Mr. Bagby for discussion. He's up first.
And I was just going to make the motion. I thought we pushed the button to make the
All
motion.
right. Well, seeing no further discussion, let's take it to a vote. The vote is unanimous, so moved. Sir.
Thanks, Mayor. Next, we have item 5B. This is the second reading of ordinance number 2118 CN, an ordinance of the City of Destin making appropriations for certain expenditures, expenses, capital improvements, and certain indebtedness of the City of Destin, Florida for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021, and ending September 30, 2022, and providing for an effective date. And this is also a public hearing.
And seeing as public hearing, I have to open it up for public comment, but there's no public here, so I'm going to close it for public comment because no one's here to make public comment. So, with that portion closed, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mayor, I'll make the motion. I move that the council adopt ordinance 21-18-CN on second reading to provide for a balanced budget for FY 2022.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Any discussion? Seeing no, Mr. Destin.
You spoke too soon there. Well, I want to congratulate our new finance person for the sterling quality job she's done to take the budget and make it where we can understand it and understand what's going on. I still believe this is deficit spending. We're spending more than we're taking in. We are using up 1/3 of our reserves. That's a dead-end road. I drove around town yesterday looking at the road surfaces on many of the streets and tried to calculate what it was going to take to resurface those streets in the next 5 years. I figure about 10 million. And so for that reason, and in my reluctance in the era of COVID, hurricanes, wars and rumors of wars, I cannot vote to deficit spend. But it's still a pretty good budget.
Thank you, Mr. Destin. Anyone else? Any other comments? Apparently, she's made it so easily for us to understand that the public has too, because nobody's here. So, Crystal, congratulations. You made our day. All right, seeing no further discussion, let's go ahead and take the budget to a vote, this motion. The ayes have it, so moved. I'm assuming that's the reason why no one's here. Surely it's not Monday night.
Mayor, I'll motion to approve the consent agenda.
GB removed for discussion.
Second.
You know, that's a $2.5 million expenditure, in my opinion, should not be on the agenda and be voted on without discussion.
Gotta push it.
Okay, which one was that, sir?
And I'll second that. G.
All right, I have a motion to pull item G and a second. we'll vote on that.
Just
really
real quick, Mr. Destin can pull item G without needing to
Without one?
vote. So if Kevin's motion is just to adopt A through F, that'd probably
I
suffice.
move to approve A through F, consent agenda.
Second.
That's why we pay you so much money. Thank you, sir. You made my life easier. We have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. Let's go ahead and vote. The ayes have it, unanimous, so moved, and let's move right into item G. And Mr. Destin, you can start off the discussion.
Thank you, sir. Well, I have supported the sheriff's contract now ever since it was in existence because I always believed it was a good bang for the buck, and the quality of the services they provide, I always thought was quite good. At $2.5 million for the 17 deputies we have on the road, that comes out to $144,000 each. Now, I'm not counting the Marine officer or the two investigators, which probably don't work full-time in Destin. And the only reason I'm having the discussion we're having, that I'm putting forward tonight, is I plan to have a discussion with the finance people over at the Sheriff's Department so I can better understand how they arrive at that figure. It's the first time I've looked at this in 10 years. The last time I looked at it was 1-point-something million. It gives me pause when it gets to $2.5 million, and I think, I need a good explanation of how we came up with $140,000 per deputy. So I'm still going to vote for it, though, and we will have that discussion for next year's contract.
Okay. In light that we've pulled this, I would entertain a motion to approve or disapprove, and then we'll have discussion on it, and then a vote. I think that'd be the proper way to go. So would you like to make the motion?
I'll make the motion to.
I got a motion to approve. All right, and Doctor, do you have anything further? No?
I think that covers it.
Okay, Dr. Ramswell.
Thank you. During my agenda meeting, I had asked for a detail of the changes and increase. And City Manager, I believe you said you had gotten one report in April, and then they'd sent you an August update, and I don't recall seeing those numbers being sent.
The city clerk sent that out on Friday afternoon.
Did he? And I missed it? Okay, then that's my bad. Because that was going to be one of my questions, was where exactly were these increases and what were they for? But I won't hold everybody up if I missed an email.
I'm up next. When I was looking at the budget myself, Mr. Destin, I went and started doing a little cost comparison with Fort Walton Beach and ISO, stuff like that. And Fort Walton Beach probably has, even though they've only got 8,000 more permanent residents than we do, according to the 2020 census, they have 50 police officers. And their 24-hour police service came out to $277,000 per deputy. Of course, you divide that in half because they work 12-hour, basically 12-hour shifts, which is still in that 100, 145, 146 percent. And so they have, their budget is $6 million or somewhere along those lines, and they only got 8,000 more people than we have. So that kind of struck me to where it kind of seemed that we were getting value for the increase, because I had the same concern that you had.
And we are still at value, but at some point, if it continues to go up to 100,000 a year, we won't be.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad I don't have to make that decision. That's what you guys get to do. Next is Mr. Bagby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm like Mr. Destin. I'd like the last time I had a meeting, I had it with Sheriff Morris and his chief deputy about a year or two before they weren't, and because their numbers didn't add up, and now we've doubled the amount, because I want to look at everything, and yes, you're right, we're not a good comparison, because those deputies also cover Kelly Plantation, and Regatta Bay.
Works both ways.
Okay, and the sheriff is required, if we don't have a police force, to provide us the same level of service that he provides every other section of the county. So to say, I'm with Mr. Destin, 144,000. This is kind of like discussion we had on the landscaping contract, we're paying for enhanced services. We're paying for enhanced services. He's still got to provide us service, the basic level of service. We're paying $2.5 million. I want to know what the heck we're getting for $2.5 million. And I'll just give you a heads up. I don't know how many cars, I already asked the city manager, but I want to make sure every one of them's got that dadgum Destin sticker on it that says City of Destin. So I would also like to sit down, not at the same time as Mr. Destin, with the Chief Financial Officer of the Sheriff's Department and go through the entire budget that this covers. Thank you very much.
Lance?
I was just going to mention, for full disclosure, that I did intentionally place this on the consent agenda because it needed to be after the vote of you all approving the budget. So I figured that it would get pulled.
Nice move. Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. I believe that $144,000 per officer is not just the officers, it's for their vehicles as well, or equipment. And as far as our enhanced services, they pulled me over and there was 3 cop cars and 6 officers that they took for me. And then about a month ago,
Thank you for that enhanced security on him.
they were on a call for domestic, and there was 1 girl involved, and there was 5 cop cars there. So we're getting our enhanced services.
Yeah, that's what I said to Mr. Bagby, is that the non-incorporated and the incorporated deal works both ways. We really have more than 17 officers at any moment in time if we have an incident in Destin. So
So does the rest of the county, though, Mayor.
well,
They surge our guys over to Niceville, just like they do.
sure, and I'm glad they do that, because all our community deserves good public safety. And the thing about it is, we have almost 2,000 more permanent residents in Destin than we did in 2010 at the last census. So our community is growing on top of just, so everything goes up in my mind. When you have more people, when you have to serve more people, our expenditures in this city are going to increase as we have more people. We're not even talking visitors. We've had almost 2,000 new permanent residents in this community. So I'm not surprised that there's an increase. They've got the same issue. Policing is not a job a lot of young people are seeking to do. So as in anywhere else in this county, people are having to pay more to get people to work. And in police career field, I think is even exasperated. So I'm not trying to just wholesale support the sheriff's department, but I feel as a citizen, not as mayor, I feel as a citizen that the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Department's done a good job for us.
And if we just give them that 100,000 salary, we could get a lot more folks applying for that job. That is still leaving 44,000 for the car.
All right, let's go. We got a lot to talk about. We do have a motion and we do have a second, and let's take it to a vote. The vote is unanimous, so moved. All righty. Mr. Braden, you have, it's not listed here under item 7A, but you did have something you'd like to bring up. You got the floor, sir.
Thank you, sir. It is the agreement with for Mr. Buckingham. And if y'all like, I think Mr. Bowman can explain it better.
Sure thing. It's a pretty simple agreement. It really does just a few things. It's related to Mr. Buckingham's provision of volunteer project management services for the Captain Royal Melvin Heritage Park. It makes clear that the city manager has final authority over everything that Mike is doing. It provides that he's not being compensated, which he can't be compensated because he's on advisory boards. So under the ethics rules, he cannot be compensated. Makes clear that we're not in an employment relationship with Mike because that has certain consequences, adverse consequences to the city. It makes sure that Mike is complying with the public records law, as there are many records being exchanged in the process of his project management services. We want to make sure that those remain in full force and effect, the public records. And then finally, it provides an indemnification provision. So if Buckingham is sued in relation to his role as project management, the city agrees to indemnify and hold harmless him for anything except for gross negligence, recklessness, or any intentional misconduct on his part. And with that, that's pretty much the basics of the agreement.
Thank you. With that said, I'll make the motion to accept the agreement between the city and Mr. Buckingham.
Second.
I got a motion, a second. Mr. Bagby, you're up first.
Several questions. Normally, I don't vote for things that get walked on, but here's my questions. Paragraph 3, who certifies?
Generally, any sort of construction like this reaches a point of substantial completion, which Lewis can probably describe when substantial completion of a construction project is.
Generally, it's the architect, and I'm not sure we have an architect based on the last meeting's conversation. So my question to Lewis would be, who is going to certify that we are at substantial completion for this project?
It's going to be a combination between the building official and the engineer of record, and I think we do have an architect on board too.
Okay. Second question is, you kind of explained the employment relationship. I'll have to go back up and brush up my employment. I know he can't do it if he's on our city committees, but I thought we had to actually employ him. On paragraph 7, is that business or calendar days?
Those are just calendar days. If it's not specified, generally we do calendar days under the law.
Okay. On 8, on the public records, and I understand, you know, you're trying to keep everybody protected. Why did we not require him to just provide copies of everything related to this project at the beginning? Why? I'll just ask it like that.
Well, Mr. Buckingham has been trained on the public records law. I've spoken with him specifically in relation to his role as volunteer project manager, so he understands the rules. This just formalizes the relationship. The reason this specific language is used is because there is a statute that anytime the city enters into a contract, it requires that you use this specific language.
But that doesn't answer my question, is why aren't we just requiring him to provide copies of everything and require him to only use his city email in relation to this project?
We certainly could do that if that's the council's pleasure. I don't know if Lance, I don't think we have been having any sort of requirement like that. Certainly those types of protections could be put into place.
And my last question or point would be on C, and I've been to EMO, advanced EMO, and I couldn't tell you everything that's exempt in public records. I know confidential, I understand that, but exempt, so that you would just refresh his memory, what's exempt from public records disclosure requirements.
Yeah, certainly. If there's a public records request that would encompass anything, Mr. Buckingham would have. Mr. Buckingham is aware that he needs to consult with me and Ray and Lance. He's not just going to provide those records without some sort of safeguard of the city being involved in that. The reason why that language is specifically in here again is just the statutory language. I can't alter it.
No, I understand that, but we have a responsibility to make sure he is trained to understand what is exempt.
And Mr. Buckingham sits on a couple boards, so unfortunately for Mr. Buckingham, and as Ray and his clerk's department can attest, he sits through several of my public records presentations each year.
He's had that training. He's chairman of a couple, so he knows what the public records law require, right?
He certainly has received ample training on it, I'll put it that way.
Well, it will go through the attorney and Ray, who do know the laws, and that's their job to know. So, you know, he gives it to them, and they see what should be exempt.
Okay, is that good, Jim? Yes. All right, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question on number 2, paragraph 2, the authority. So I'm understanding correctly that every decision related to this project is going to go through the city manager, and Mike is not making a final decision on anything related to the project.
That's right. Mr. Buckingham does not have final decision-making authority on anything related to the project.
Last conversation about the pump or the fuel, the lift station, all decisions are going to go get cleared by the city manager.
Yep. They should already be getting cleared by the city manager, but this just formalizes that and really protects, I think, everyone in that regard.
Thank you.
All right, let's take it to a vote. Votes unanimous, so moved. Mr. Braden, have anything else?
Yes, sir. One more was brought to my attention today that the closest, I guess the closest ER urgent care now is at the county line. I know that we had one across from Big Kahuna's. It's a little small urgent care or something. They closed. And then I guess White Wilson doesn't take walk-ins anymore. The gentleman said he'd cut his hand, needed some stitches, and had to sit in traffic trying to get to Walton County for a long time. So I guess my question would be is, anybody know of another ER or something that's, yeah, it's closed. I guess the new ER is out by Backyard Burgers.
Yeah. It's still in the county.
Yeah, it's in the county, and there's another one just outside of Walton County.
Yeah.
But has anybody heard of any ER urgent care or something? I don't know if the one by across from Big Kahuna, if that's reopening soon, or I guess it was brought up because the fire department was talking about, they needed somebody at the west end, and like response
That'd be a
time.
good conversation to get Mr. Moody involved in the Chamber of Commerce, because promoting Destin business environment and the community as a whole, that's something that maybe we could work with the Chamber of Commerce to speak some of these companies and see if there's a market for that. It's kind of surprising we've relied on White Wilson all these years.
Yeah, I didn't realize
Now
they
they've
don't-
stopped walk-ups and that kind
Yeah.
of stuff, so.
I didn't realize that either till
Me neither.
today.
And there was an emergency care next to White Wilson in the old hospital for quite some time. Who ran that? Was that White Wilson or someone else?
They're on Matty Kelly?
I'm not sure.
The old hospital facility,
Yeah, that
across
was-
from the airport, that
Yeah,
used to be a
that was-
small ER after they closed the hospital for a number of
I
years.
think Fort Walton ran that.
I know that it's still in her office. And there's one behind Walmart, several doctors, who I think you can walk in and see.
Yeah, we just need more of emergency services type of thing. All right.
Yeah.
I'll reach out to Shane and start having that discussion, and maybe he can talk with some of the, folks in that profession, because, when you talk about promoting your community, medical care, emergency medical care especially, is always an important thing. So I'll just reach out to him and chat with him and see where that leads
Yeah,
us.
I was just curious if anything's on the horizon, or, if anybody heard of anything, because I didn't realize we were down ERs or whatever, so had to almost go to the next county to get one. That's all I have tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Dr. Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. Quick question. We had talked at the last meeting about parks and parking codes, and I wanted to see if I could go ahead and get that put on the next agenda under my name and have staff look into why we have parks without parking codes and just get back some more information on that. Because it seemed like that was an issue. I believe former Councilwoman Trammell might have brought that up when she was talking about city parks and that we don't have required parking at parks. And that's it was just the last meeting. Do y'all have a better memory on what was said than I do?
Let me look into it.
Was she making
because-
reference to the new part, the
Well, that's when it came up. It came up during that conversation about the accesses and the right-of-ways, but she said our parks, apparently, there's nothing in the code requiring parking for our parks.
That could be true. And the last time I did a deep dive on the parks and parking, we still had in effect where a handicap spot was required unless it was exempted by council. There are neighborhood parks that are not designed to have parking, but even the neighborhood parks still required that one handicap spot unless the council waived it off. So, but I can check into it.
Yeah, that'd be great if you can just get that information and sort of have it clarified for us to take a look at and see if it's something we need to address. And then the other thing I wanted to look at is, months ago, we approved the historical district, the Zerby Calhoun Historical District, and I wanted to see if there had been signage that was put up displaying that and really, not marketing, that's the wrong word, but promoting the fact that that was a historical district. Bueller?
Sorry, I was still writing from the last one. I don't believe we've got any signage up at this point. Has it been ordered? I know we were looking into it.
What was that, city manager? I was coughing and couldn't hear you.
The new historical district, have we got the signage for that district yet?
I probably need to talk to Lewis's group about that and the aesthetics of that. No, I haven't, but I mean, we can, certainly.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be a great way to promote some of the more historical areas of Destin. So if we can order some signage and get that up, and I think even promoting it on our city maps would be a good thing when we have our next update to those online and wherever.
If I may add, we are in the process right now, as you know, of preparing a wayfinding program. We are almost halfway through, and it's one of those areas that's identified in that program. And so we can certainly put something temporary right now, but we intend to have something more formal as part of the overall branding of the city.
That's great. And I guess what I was thinking of is, you know, when you go by Fort Walton as an example, and you see the historical sign, this was the Indian temple, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I know that's from a historical society, but if we could just get something special that indicates these nice areas in Destin and relates back to our history, I think that'd be good. That's it.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Destin.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Mr. Bagby.
Two quick things. If you get a chance, get the newest copy of the Destin VIP magazine and look on the cover and you will see our own Councilwoman Ramswell and her family. And it is a great picture and it promotes the school. I think it was taken at the opening of the school or whatever. So congratulations, that's an honor. The second thing is when you reach out to Shane, ask him to reach out to Emerald Coast Urgent Care. They're the ones that have one in Inlet Beach, one in Panama City Beach, and the one that they say is in Destin, which is actually next to Community Bank over in Miramar Beach. Yeah, and so it would just make sense that they just put one maybe on the western end or the middle of Destin, since they already have a presence up here. They could do that.
That's Emerald Coast. Right?
Emerald Coast Urgent Care, yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to give a shout out to Public Works, Michael Burgess and his very short-staffed crew that took care of a lot of flooding, mainly on the old Destin area down Main Street. It was immediate. Within 5 minutes they were there and the pump wasn't big enough. They got another one and got cones and lots of rain, lots of flooding. And I know y'all were spread very thin, but there were 3 areas that I know that I had neighbors and people call me and say, oh my God, they were here within 15 minutes. And so I don't know how you did it because I know you're down one guy and somebody else has left. And so thank you for your folks. They worked well and glad that we can start finally taking care of them in the pay department. Thanks again, Michael.
Just one thing, I just wanted to say thanks to Crystal in the spirit of this meeting and just your diligence with our budget and making everything so seamless. And I mean, it's hard to question you on the things that you do. You do such a good job. So thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir. A few things. Question on replacing our engineer. Do we have any headway on any of that yet, or is it started?
It has been advertised.
Advertised.
Yeah.
Okay. Have we got any hits on that yet? No. Okay.
We've had hits, but they're misses.
Okay. Gotcha.
We have, are you allowed to say what what we're offering to bring somebody in that position into the city of Destin? What's their pay scale?
I was just going to pull it up on the website. It is.
I just want to make it real public.
Yes, it is listed on the website. I also have it as a sponsored post on either LinkedIn or Indeed. So we're using both of them. LinkedIn, possibly. I have one.
But the money we're offering?
Yes, it's listed on the posting and on our website.
You can't say how much it is?
Oh, yes.
That's what I'm looking for.
I can go on to the next thing
Go on.
while she's doing
Thanks,
that.
Kevin.
Yeah, no problem. Do we, I see Joey, or not sure if anybody's online, but do we have any update on our livery vessel permits from this previous season that's now over?
Kim, can you answer that?
I think that would have to be a question for staff if you're talking about specifics. I can tell you numbers. Last I heard from staff, they were all handled except for 2, I believe, but I would have to defer to Lance.
And Lance don't know.
I honestly would have to check with Joey to get you the straight answer on that. I know that several things went out in the mail last week, but I can't tell you the names of the businesses they went to.
Oh, I don't want names, because I know we don't like to talk about specific people on a public meeting. I guess it is.
Well,
it
Councilmember
is-
Schmidt, I do know that there were 2 left as of the last I heard about a week ago. So I believe the vast majority are complete.
Okay, so it's concerning that we still have 2 businesses that don't have livery permits in September. So I think the renewal timeframe is opening in November, or is it first of the year? Does anybody know?
I believe it's November.
November? I would love to add on to the, let's see, Jesus, I guess the second October meeting, right before November, to hear what our plan is to do things differently this year than what we did, this coming year versus what we just did. I know that eGov and all that's going to be a big part of it, but we've had 7 and now 2 businesses that they made it through the whole year. So I would love to have kind of a strategic update of what the plan is for livery vessels before that application goes live, and we potentially embarrass ourselves again with the livery vessel registration, approval process, and the whole 9 yards in October if we could. I know that's around the corner, but if the application's coming online, I really think we need to kind of hear what that plan is. Is that okay? I mean, okay.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am. Interject. Go ahead.
90,000 depending on qualifications.
Thank you, and that's for the engineer.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
There you go. Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you. Sorry. On the livery vessels, and this might be for Kim, but for these folks that are still not finalized, do we get to back collect for the whole year of not getting their fees or the registrations or whatever that we haven't collected yet? Like whenever they officially get approved, do we get to still collect the money even though the season's over?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Last thing is, do we have a scheduled or update on the airport change ordinance that's coming hopefully soon? Is there any LPA schedule or council schedule that we have on the radar? Either Kimberly or I guess Louis.
Is this a question about the helicopters that we discussed at the last meeting?
This is about the ordinance change,
Yeah.
I think, the table.
Yeah, we talked about aiming for October LPA,
Is that
which
what we're
means
still
it would
doing?
not, which means it wouldn't be at council until probably at least November.
And are we still on schedule for October LPA?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's all. I was just wanting to double check. That's
Mr.
it.
Schmidt,
Yes,
can I-
ma'am.
I have a question building on that. You mentioned airport. Michael, when is the frictioning or the placement of that frictioning stuff on Airport Road going to happen now?
The email I received late last week said the first dry day, and that should have been today. However, I'm going to reach out to DOT in the morning just to get an updated schedule. We look good the rest of the week.
Right,
So
thanks.
I know I just jinxed it, but this will be our 4th or 5th rescheduling. So hopefully we can get it done before Christmas. But we'll be sure to let Catherine know, and she can put it out on social media and next door let people apprise them of that situation. Now, once the high-pressure surface treatment goes down, we have a 2-week curing period. During that time, FDOT's materials office will become taking samples of that and make sure it meets spec. And then after that, all the new signage will go up and the new, all the thermoplastic striping will go down and it'll be finished.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you. I'm up next. I just want to thank everyone for being prepared, studying their briefing documents, and having meetings with Lance's staff and asking those questions. We would have got out of here exactly 2 hours if I hadn't taken a 5-minute break. And I think, as you can see, we're not getting much public participation. I wish it would be because we're doing such a wonderful job, but it may be because those 4-hour meetings we've had there the last couple months have just wore people down. So keeping it under 2 hours or at 2 hours is really going to help us, I think, long-term with public participation. And it'll save us money because we don't have to pay some of these guys overtime. So I just want to thank all of you for being prepared. That tonight's meeting went extremely well. So that's all I have to say tonight is thanks to the council members. All right, Ms. Cobb.
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. City Attorney, you're the last guy.
Nothing from me.
And we're not going to have any public comment because there is no public. Meeting adjourned.